Well, welcome to another episode of the True Man Podcast. You know, one of the primary reasons that the True Man Podcast even exists today was a conversation between soon to become close friends at a pizza joint during lunch, having a conversation about giving and taking. And it's a topic that good friend Paul Bailey and periodic co-host and I have had many, many times. And today I'm excited to continue that conversation with guest E.A. Csolkovits. And I hope I got that. We just had a laugh about that a second ago. So E.A. is the founder of Givers University, an entrepreneur, writer, and interestingly enough, has interviewed over 1,000 millionaires as a radio talk show host, which I think qualifies him to answer how to achieve a giver's mindset in order to transform your life. So EA, thank you for being on the show and welcome to the True Man Podcast.
Mike, thank you for having me on your great show, and hopefully we can share some great golden nuggets for your listeners. And you nailed the last name. You know, I mean,
Did I nail it?
You were like the Robin Hood splitting the arrow with an arrow. So if I forget how to say it, do you mind if I give you a call? And
No.
Mike, how do you say that last name?
No, I prefer Smiths, Andersons, Jones. That's very helpful to me.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I have... which never happens, rarely happens on the show. It's always something like Csolkovits, right? and you may be wondering, how did he do that so well? Well, I had to phonetically write it so that
That's okay. I still do the same thing.
Now I feel better.
And like I told you, until I was 12 years old, I thought my name was Go Chop Wood. So yeah. I mean, what's the difference? I mean,
I think my name is Go Chop Wood. So there you go. So, you know, EA, as I've talked with you a little bit and read a little about you, you know, you learned work ethic at a very early age, which is pretty novel in this day and age of kids sitting at home in their room. But you also came across a great mentor that began to transform your life at that early age. So I think that's a great starting point today. So to tell us about you and learn about you and some of the great wealth of knowledge you bring to the table about being a giver. So let's just jump in and talk with us a little bit about what you learned at an early age.
Thank you. Happy to do so. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area. Greater Chicago area, Oak Brook area. And, you know, my father was a milkman. Back then, milk came in glass gallons. And there was a box outside everyone's house, and that was the milkman box.
Yep.
And you know what was amazing, Mike, was there was always money in the milkman box, and no one touched it. Not one single time did anyone. That was milkman money. You don't touch that.
That'd be pretty daring. Today, well, it'd probably be a credit card. It wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. A debit card with the last four digits. A debit card. Yeah. Here's the last four digits of the number. You know. So
right.
And, so I mean, it was amazing. It was certainly different times, right? People. I mean, but no one touched the milkman money. And you made an interesting comment there, and I have to, you know, a nod to my father. He you know, he had a one-man operation for Twin Oaks Dairy, and back then the only trucks that were refrigerated were the big 18-wheelers. The delivery guys like my father, who just had his own truck. You know, they had 6-foot blocks of ice that in the morning they went and chopped these up with ice picks and put them all over the top of the milk. And that's how I kept it cold while we were delivering, right?
I actually just love these stories because I mean, nowadays everything's so easy, man. I mean,
yeah, he got up at 3 a.m. every morning, you know, and I think that was I was able to see at an early age. No one was over my father saying get up at 3 a.m. He had his own route, you know. He had his own route, and one man, you know, delivering milk, and here I am at 5 years old helping him periodically and breaking a lot of glass bottles in the meantime, inadvertently. And he always said one thing, Mike, and that was, he always said, well, when we're done, we're done. And the point he was always making to me was, the sooner we get what we need to get done out of the way, then we can do the other things we want to do. And he just said, he drilled it into me over and over again. And to the point that, you know, I think it just became a part of me. And also just watching him as a one-man operation, not being told what to do when it needed to be done. He just got up and did it, you know, and that was it. And I think that carried with me a little bit, just sort of living that, if you will, not just hearing it. I was there with them at 5 years old, and then at the ripe old age of 16, I took my first step towards prosperity, and I became a janitor. Now, I didn't mind being a janitor because business was always picking up. What? And so the
I like that. Yeah.
Yep. But I had two amazing events happen to me when I was a janitor, because you think, lowly janitor, what goes on with that? Well, the first was at 16 years old, Mike, I was able to be bonded, which means insured, so that if my buffer hit some piece of equipment, the insurance company would pay for it. And it also allowed me to be in expensive places that had expensive
Yeah.
equipment and expensive homes. And one of the homes I was able to clean, and I was there every single Wednesday. I cleaned a lady's home. It was $1 million mansion at that point. And when I say the name, it won't mean anything to your listeners until I make the movie reference. The lady's name was June Martino. And if any of you have seen, and if they haven't, they should, because it's a pretty good view. There was a movie a couple of years ago. Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, and the name of the movie is The Founder. And it's about McDonald's.
It's a fantastic movie, by the way.
Yeah. And through the movie, Michael Keaton, who plays Ray Kroc, he's talking to a lady, and she's in the entire movie outside his office all the time. He's saying, June this, June this. That lady is the lady whose house I cleaned every Wednesday.
Yeah, this is a great story. Yeah.
And June Martino. And she was, and it was astonishing, to me, that when I met her, I was 16. So she already had the third most controlling stock. And, she had not yet, but subsequently became the first woman to ever trade on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Wow.
She was
That's
an
cool.
amazing lady. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And so here I am in this $1 million house, and I'm thinking, man. And I'd always thought up to that point, Mike, that to make it in life, you had to be a jerk. You had to be, you had to take advantage of people, take, me first, throw them under the bus, you're fired.
But by the way, the movie does not portray Ray Kroc really all that nicely.
And I have to say, genuinely, he was not that way. In the beginning of the movie, it says this is based on a true story.
Yeah.
It's true. It's based on a true story, but it's not the true story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all, so much Hollywood spin and drama put in there.
Sure.
Ray,
Right.
Ray clearly was not that way, and certainly neither was June. And she told me one day, and I'll certainly condense the story down, but the long and short of it is, one whole day she invested with me, telling me the whole story from where she met Ray when the movie starts. And that's when she started telling me. She worked for him when he sold milkshake mixers for Prince Castle, and then how he met the brothers all the way through, all the way up until the very moment we were sitting at the table. She even had the maid and butler bringing in food so she could keep telling me the story. And I'm going, man, this is amazing. I kept looking around thinking, I'm 16 years old, and this is June Martino, the icon. But what is she doing? Tell me all day long. It is a whole full day thing. And I used to love cleaning the garage, by the way. She had a Rolls Royce in there, and to clean the garage, I had to pull the Rolls Royce out. Here I am sitting in a car worth 10 lifetimes of my income. And, and I would go home at night, and I'm driving a Rolls Canardly, which basically, rolls down one hill and can hardly make it up the next. So I'm driving my Rolls Canardly I'm thinking, people really live like this.
Yeah.
And she's not a jerk. In fact, she's just the opposite. She's so approachable and so nice. In fact, even if my head was down and I was buffing, a special buffering pad on the floors that she had, and if I was looking down, she walked through them, she'd say hi anyway. I mean, just that way, full-time maid and butler, but super nice lady. And she told me about the impact Ray had on her life, and that he, I didn't know the word mentor. I didn't know what it was.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to spell it. I spent my hooked on phonics money on something else, so I didn't know it. But she told me about the impact he had on her. And I thought, man, if I could just find a Ray Kroc, someone to put me under their wing. I'm a son of a milkman, burnt out janitor. And if I could I don't even know what I don't know. All I know is I don't know it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to ask. I don't know what to do. And yet she's seriously doing something I'm not doing, because I'm cleaning this and it was $1 million home when I was 16, and I'm 65 now. So, I knew the difference. This is an incredible experience. And I remember thinking, where would I find my Ray Kroc? Where would he be? And it wasn't 2 or 3 months later, we got a phone call to janitorial service. This man was in from Michigan, opening a diamond store, wanted to see some carpeting, and my boss told me to go, and I ended up, of course, didn't sell him the carpeting because we only had commercial grade for offices, and he wanted something plush for this diamond store. Then the guy offered me a job, and he became my mentor. He became the father I never had, even though I had a father, and I became the son he never had, even though he had a son. And Mike, I have to say, he was a puritanical genius. Not, I don't believe in the genius IQ kind of thing. I think that's a bunch of BS. I've met too many educated idiots in my life.
Yeah, they're out there.
All the book knowledge, they could spew it all at you. Zero execution and implementation skills. Don't know how to apply any of it. They just know because they read it in a book and they know theorem and they can throw it back at you. This guy was the opposite. He was all about results. And how
do you think, I'm just curious, listening to your story, how do you think that, if this is the right way to put it, if this is how you look at it, the universe kind of aligned to bring him into your life? You're saying, well, gosh, where's my Ray Kroc? And then this gentleman appears. I mean, do you look at it that way? Like the universe, just because of your attitude, because you were wishing it, that the universe kind of aligned for that to happen?
Very good question. And I can share with you that, again, it was one of the things my mentor taught me later on. I inadvertently did something correct. Incorrectly, didn't know I was doing it. Ignorantly, meaning I didn't even know I was doing it. But what I did was, I did something my mentor taught me later on to do very deliberately. I just didn't know I did it by accident the right way. And it was by accident. My mentor taught me, he said, don't worry about the answers in life. They're all there. They're omnipresent. They're around us. He said, focus on asking the right questions. He said, when you ask the right question, you'll get the right answer. He said, the answer's already there. He said, everyone wants to know the answer. Give me the answer. I want to know the answer. He said, wrong. It's backwards. The answer's there already. It always was. Focus on asking the right question.
Yeah.
Inadvertently, when I said, where's my Sam Robbins? I didn't say, oh, I'm never going to meet my Sam Robbins, and how come I'm never going to meet someone? Because then I would have got that answer.
Yeah.
But I can say that it was because of inadvertently asking the right question that all of a sudden, within a couple of months, he was there. So yes, I can share with you that after 40 plus years in business and meeting literally hundreds of thousands of people and interviewing over 1,000 millionaires, I can categorically say there is no such thing as chance or luck. I do not believe in it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
In my earlier years, I thought, well, maybe, I don't know, it's possible. As time went on and as, I supplanted wisdom with, from education, if you will, I can share that, with your listeners. There is no such thing as chance or luck. And I've seen and interviewed too many amazing experiences that proved it to me beyond a shadow of a doubt. So yes, it was asking the right question inadvertently. And there he was, my Ray Kroc, and to show you what an amazing man this guy was. He shared with me a story of his life. He said, he grew up during the Depression era, the Great Depression, and he said no one had any money. He said people were jumping off of buildings because they lost their fortunes.
Yep.
He said multi-mile long soup kitchen lines just to get a bowl of soup, and he said for some of his meals, they even ate cardboard. You want to talk about having a tough time of it. And he was walking one day and he just sort of walked around because, there was couldn't work anywhere or anything. And he went by the same store and he sort of passed by every day. Same guy in the back of the store all by himself. And the store was filled with sewing machines. And so one day he just went in. I'm just going to talk with the guy and shoot the breeze. Well, it turns out he was the owner of the company, the guy was. And he said, I've got all those sewing machines. They're all long paid for and they're just collecting dust. No one's got money for sewing machines. They're looking for food, And he said, I don't have any employees. I can't afford any. He says, it's just me. So I'm just sitting here staring down sewing machines collecting dust. And my mentor had this flash in his mind. And he said, well, could I help you sell some of those? I said, what do you have in mind? I'm all ears. He says, well, how about if we put together a plan where we could sell them on payments because people can't afford to buy the whole thing. And he said, and I'll guarantee if someone walks on the sewing machine, I'll guarantee the sewing machine so you won't be out and we'll split the payments. And the guy said, have at it, man. These are all paid for collecting dust. Go for it, right? So the next thing my mentor did is he put together a flyer for women to work from home. And he said he could not keep up with the response because no one was hiring. And the fact that anyone was hiring, he said, so he had a huge response unexpectedly. And he put together a way where women could buy the sewing machine on payments. He gave them the patterns, he gave them the materials, and he guaranteed he would buy the clothing from them, thus guaranteeing their income so they could make the payments on the sewing machine and have an income, which everyone wanted. They were, just have extra money for food, etc. So then, that wasn't the end of the story. Then he bought the clothing from the women and sold it to stores at dramatically reduced, high quality, handmade clothing. And the stores then turned around and sold it to customers who needed clothing but needed a deep, deep discount, very inexpensive way of getting them. So in 1 year's time, Mike, people are jumping off of buildings, committing suicide.
Yeah.
Multi-mile long soup kitchen lines. He earned $1 million.
I'm curious. Yeah, this is just a thought. Since everybody wants to work at home, do you know where we could get some sewing machines? Maybe we should start. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and I don't think it would be like finding a needle in a haystack.
Oh, anyway, very good. I like that.
Know. Do you know how hard that is to thread that in a conversation?
Okay. Very good.
Yeah,
Police Academy just broke out on the podcast here.
I didn't want to stand here with my head bobbing. I mean,
wow.
I'll take the punishment will end. Sorry. But the amazing thing about this is my mentor solved everyone's challenge. He solved the challenge the owner had, solved the challenge that women had. He built this huge workforce of women, this community of women working from home. And it was interesting how all of a sudden here we're looking at that same kind of thing again. And he solved the problem for the store owners and for the ultimate customers. And I thought, man, what an amazing man. So at 19 years old, Mike, I simply asked him. I said, Sam, his name was Sam Robbins. I said, Sam, will you teach me everything? Everything. Don't hold back. I want to know it all. And he said, okay, I will. But I want one thing from you. And I said, okay. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many people as you can everything that I teach you. So at 19 years old, I made an oath. I made a vow to my mentor that today has manifested as Givers University. That's how it started.
Did you have any inkling when you made that oath at how it would transform your life?
Well, I would have to answer that the way Walt Disney did one time, to borrow his answer because it's one of the best ones. Mary Poppins was just coming out. And I was a Walt Disney fan and sort of watched him. And they were interviewing him. And they said, Walt, would you do it all again if you could? And he said, well, yeah, I would, but I sure hope I don't have to.
Right. Yeah.
So my answer would be the same. So many great lessons and the things learned and, the experiences. I had no idea, other than I knew that I wanted what this man could teach me. He was worth millions and millions of dollars. And and it wasn't really about, at that age, really, Mike, truthfully, I was about the money, a teenager, late teens.
Sure.
Give me the money. If I have enough money, then I'm going to be happy. Not realizing I even had that backwards. We should be happy and live happily ever after first.
Right.
And if the money's there, that's great. Right. And so I had to even learn that I was doing that backwards, which he did teach me. And it was all about this thing, this community. And he taught me about this givers and takers kind of thing. And what we teach really manifests from what he taught me was we simply at Givers University, first of all, I say to all your listeners, we love everybody. I say it again emphatically, we love everybody. But we teach people how to separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love.
Ooh.
And so what we do is we teach at a very granular level. Don't listen to what they say. Observe what they do. Because our talk talks and our walk talks, and our walk talks louder than our talk talks. I
Yeah.
want you to know I practiced that right before I said it. But anyway,
I hope you did.
Yeah. And don't try that with peanut butter and crackers in your mouth. It doesn't work. So we teach them actual checklists. It's a skill of how to discern in relationships. Now, I'm a self-improvement guy. I'm positive you are. I'm sure almost all your listeners are. And that's great. I love it. I think it's awesome. But Mike, no one's teaching us, how about the other guy? What if he's doing it wrong? What should I do about that?
Yeah.
And so what happens is we inadvertently, because we don't have the skill, we invite these people into our life and they make us collateral damage. And we end up, I ask your listeners, how many fires do you stomp out that are not of your making?
Oh boy. What's interesting about hearing you say that, it's kind of the first thing that pops into my mind, EA, is that as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and this always amazes me, sometimes I invite people in for help, but many times people invite themselves in and try to solve my problems, which actually I don't find very helpful. And in fact, sometimes it leads me to confusion periodically. How do we separate from people that are just trying to be helpful, but they're not? And these not only happen, from a business standpoint, but they happen in all walks of life. How do we separate? And I don't even know if I'm using the right word. It's the first one that popped into my head. How do we acknowledge those people? And, is it just as simple as, hey, thanks for trying to help, and then move on? Or what do you do in those situations?
It's a great question. And again, it is something I have to say, with all the interviews and stuff, it's so exciting to be able to share this info, because it really just isn't being taught. And it's a skill set it's a discernment in relationships. So we actually have checklists that we teach. One we give away free. In fact, a number of them we do, but my favorite one is called the 25 do's, the 25 deeds. These are the 25 things that you can watch someone do, the actual deeds. And on one side is the 25 things that givers will do. You can observe them doing. It's a skill, an observation skill. And here's the 25 deeds that takers do. And you literally can just go through and do a check mark, and at the bottom, you know the answer. And so when we have givers, and we don't label people, we don't say giver. When we say giver, we're saying giver deeds. When we say taker, we're saying taker deeds. We're identifying the deeds, not the person who we love. We're identifying the deeds which we may not love. And so what we do is we teach people, when you observe these deeds, you may now want to begin bringing them in closer into your life, because you want to build a giver community around you. You don't want to be stomping out fires not of your making. You don't want to be having your stress level go through the roof, and what's interesting is all those things have names attached to them. They all have names attached to them. By contrast, when we observe other deeds, we may want to begin discerning. That's what we teach, discernment. We may want to begin discerning and respectfully distancing ourselves from them, not rude or nasty, but respectfully distancing ourselves from them, so that they don't become a part of our life and make us as collateral damage. We teach people how to do just that. And part of it is, you were sort of walking in the middle of the game, because so many people already have these people in their life, and they're saying, what am I going to do? And we actually teach them, how do you step by step, little by little, supplant the takers with givers? And how do you, and part of it is being able to discern which are which. We don't judge people, we look at their deeds. And it was like this one guy, a few interviews back, he goes, man, that's really great. I read this book. It says I need to have 5 good people around me. I said, you're right. You should. You should have 5 good people around you. One question: which 5? And then he stared at me with this, blank little orphan Annie look. And I'm saying, do you see my point? No one's teaching which 5. So we have broken it down into a very granular level where you can no longer say how to, because there it is. That's how you do it, right? This is what you look for. And we teach people this discernment. If someone said, what do you teach at Givers University? I can say it in one word: discernment. We teach how to discern in your relationships. In business life today, as you teach on your podcast, which is a great mentoring tool for everyone. And that is businesses open and closing faster than ever before in history.
Yeah.
Products being antiquated overnight faster than ever before in history. Well, when all that's said and done, what do you have left? Your relationships. And no one's teaching us how to discern which ones should we have and which ones shouldn't we have. I'm not going to accept the ones into my life that are doing it wrong. I don't care what anyone says. I'm just not going to do that, right? That's a part of my freedom of choice. I have a God-given right of choice. And part of my choice that God gave me was the choice of my thoughts.
Yeah.
And those choices I get to have of those I want to have around me. And so my mentor taught me that relationship of how to, and I have to say, I still made cavernous mistakes, as
you're human.
As fortunes came into and left my life and came into my life and left my life and, got tackled 1,000 times through that learning curve as our wisdom begins to grow and deepen into what these things really, really mean. And that's why I'm such an advocate for, great shows like yourself. Come Back Coach. What an awesome thing, because not only are you being a mentor for so many people, but one of the things my mentor taught me was that, and this I can tie in with the 1,000 interviews I did millionaires because it was a common thread. They all, not some of them, all of them had the story of when everything in their life told them to stop. Everything. Their family, their friends, money, politics, government regulations, name it. They all had all the reasons. And every one of them had a story. Not some of them, not part of them, not most of them. All of them. And all of them, interestingly also, did one more thing. They took the next step. And what was also funny was some of them even used the same word. Didn't know each other, different industries. I interviewed these 1,000 millionaires over 2 years, and here these are 1,000 people who've earned over $1 million, are worth over $1 million, have earned $1 million.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find out what's that common thread. Why these men and women, when even today with inflation, if you add someone's whole life together, it's not $1 million. So what'd they do differently?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, EA. I mean, for the everyday dude or man that's listening to this, they're probably thinking to themselves, I mean, I have, like, what can I do differently to get me up over the hump? Because the world, it's almost living counterculturally, right? The world around you is going, I don't think you can make it. And you got to be able to go, I think I can. Like, what's the answer there?
I like the word you said. I would use a parallel word, excuse me, that would be contrarian. I basically live a contrarian life.
Yeah.
Because here's why. If I want to be happy, I'm not going to do what most people do because they're not happy. If I want to be wealthy, I'm not going to do what most people do because they're not wealthy.
Yeah.
And if I want to be healthy, I'm not going to do what most people do because they're not healthy. So you could truly say, my mentor taught me to be contrarian and also to be what he referred to as an independent thinker. An independent thinker has the ability to think their own thoughts, whereas a dependent thinker thinks their thoughts and does their deeds based on and dependent on what other people feed them and say for them to do. So he taught me how to be an independent thinker versus a dependent thinker. And that's a critical part of success. And the ability to ask the right questions, the ability to not give up, as all these 1,000 millionaires I met, they all took that next step. And some of them said it was even out of morbid fascination, like, what else could possibly go wrong? Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything? There's got to be one thing I missed somewhere because I think I hit them all. And they said they took the next step. And when they did, temporary defeat left their life. And they said they could almost feel when it happened, that it just went somewhere else and said, man, this man or woman doesn't know where to give up. So they're not going to throw in a towel. I'm going to go screw up someone else's life. It's going to be a whole lot easier. And they said things started working together. And for them, even in spite of them, they said, some of them said those words, even in spite of me, it started working out. They said it was actually astonishing to me. and they became huge advocates on never giving up.
It's really inspiring hearing you say that. And I'm just curious, was there a trigger or something that you came across when you were talking with all these folks? Was there something, I don't know, I always say like a button. Did they hit a button? Was there a pause? Was there like, what was it that just, I mean, was there anything that you picked up on that was unique that that these people, other than just a feeling to keep going, was there something unique there that just allowed them to keep going?
I can share with you that, in my search for the commonalities, which is why I was one of the reasons I was doing the interview, even though it was on, a live radio show. The fact of the matter was I wanted, I was looking for and searching for these commonalities. Why them?
Yeah.
And I can share with you that there's different industries. Didn't matter what the product was. Didn't matter what industry they were in. And it didn't even matter the time. Everyone says it's all about timing. And I could submit to you, it's not. It's a contributor. It's a contributor, but it's not all about timing. But they had a certain way. They had a thought process, and they had a mindset that they were going to do this anyway. And what was really intriguing for me, Mike, was that these interviews were confirmations to me of not only what I was experiencing, but also what my mentor had taught me.
Yeah.
And the things that were very, very important. One of the things he taught me was, and interestingly enough, these millionaires had that same commonality. When I was 19, my mentor says, "Let me tell you about this thing called life and how it works." I said, "Okay, this is going to be interesting." He said, "Picture in your mind this scale. And on the right side of the scale, all the things you're going to get in your life, all the things you're going to receive, all the things you're going to get, your income, everything, all it comes from the right side. On the left side of the scale, it's going to be all the things you give, all the things you contribute, all the things you put in, all the things when you help others." He said, "Now here's what's interesting about the scale. It's never out of balance. It strives for balance. Even if it seems out of balance for one split second, it always rights itself and is always in balance." He said, "Now, what I say next will be hard for you to do." He said, "But if you stay at it, you'll get your head around it and you'll master it. But in the beginning, it's not going to be easy." He said, "Here it is. Forget about the right side." He said, "Forget about what you get." He said, "And make it your goal every day to get that scale out of balance by heaving so much on the left giving side that your job is to get it out of balance." He said, "And when it rights itself, because it always does, you'll never have to think about the money, and you'll never have to think about all the things you get in your life." And I can share with you that is an absolute, not even possibly, it is an absolute. And he shared with me the importance of being able to do that. So to be able to give on that left side and constantly build and give and give. And he shared with me, he said, when someone's a giver, he said, people are trained on only half of the sentence. He said, and the second half is more important than the first half, and no one's teaching it, and no one's even saying it. He said, "I'll give you the first half of the sentence. It is, when you're a giver, people will take advantage of you." He said, "That's the first half of the sentence. When you're a giver, people will take advantage of you." He said, "Here's the rest of the sentence. When you're a giver, people will take advantage of you, but you are never diminished when they did. They are diminished because they did."
Wow.
That's the part no one gets. He said, "And when you understand the scale of life, they hurt themselves and diminish themselves. You're not diminished when someone takes advantage of you. Keep getting that scale out of balance and watch it balance itself from other people, from other circumstances, from other events, totally unpredictable, but it will always be in balance."
That's incredible advice. As somebody who talks about comebacks, turnaround, second chances in life, I also talk about the comeback kind of being a big pot of stew, and you got to pour the ingredients in there. It's not, you just don't get a comeback. You get all the ingredients. And what I find is, and I find this all the time, is that there's like this never ending list of ingredients that get to be put into that pot. And you were just giving us a little bit of that. And I love that. because if you're going to start with a comeback or a turnaround, no matter what spot you're in your life, you got to know what the ingredients are. And there's just so much, opportunity there. I want to ask you this, because there may be somebody listening right now, and I'm a big believer in finding groups and communities to be a part of, mentors, accountability partners, whatever you want to call it. How can, if a man's listening and they're thinking, man, I'm doing life on my own, it sure would be nice to find somebody to do life with. How can they find a mentor? How would you suggest they find a mentor, and what qualities should they look for in somebody that can help them with their walk in life?
Great question. What's interesting is that with so many of this second round of interviews I'm doing, how many hosts have actually told me, what you just covered. I was just talking to some of my friends, and we were just talking about that. That would be a neat thing to do, and we would like to do that, right?
Yeah.
So what I can do, and I appreciate our interest of time here, and so I'm going to hit it real quick. Your listeners can certainly hear this multiple times, and I'm going to share with them where they can get much more detailed information on how do we build the community around us? How do we build the right kind of community? First of all, we use the word junto, Junto. And a junto basically is a group of people that get together for a common interest or thread. It's a word from the 1600s, Spanish word, wasn't used much till the 1700s, when a man by Benjamin Franklin by the name picked it up. And he formed 12 friends around him called the Mutual Improvement Club. They met every Friday. They talked about politics, ethics, morals, business. And later on, he called that group his junto. Later on, he called them the Leather Apron Club. And what's interesting is that our very Declaration of Independence can be arguably traced back to the conversations he had with those 12 people at his junto. So we teach people how to form what we call a giver's junto. And there's three kinds. There's a greater junto, any number of people. There's what's an insider junto, which is usually 2 to 12 people, much more close-knit group, more intimate. And then there's a millionaire's junto of people who are vetted millionaires, 2 to 12 people. We teach people absolutely free. We want to do it. Our goal is to get that scale out of balance. We're shooting for getting that scale out of balance. So we teach people how to form their junto. There's 7 steps. They can form their junto. It can be a Givers University junto, but it could be their own too. We want them to do it either way.
Yeah.
And there's 7 steps that they go through, and we teach the 7 steps. First step, how do you decide who to have a party? There's a methodology to how to decide that. The second step is how to invite. How do you invite them? The third, how do you seed your junto? When do you convene, establish, rotate, and the numbers? By the way, I just spelled out the word discern. That's the 7 steps, the 7 word letters for the acronym. And I'm going to share with your listeners where they can get all this in detail. It's free. We want them to have it. The most important part in getting a great mentor, to your question, and deciding who we want to have around us, is decide who do we want? Which 5, right? Which 12? And so we guide them through with actual checklists. We want them to print it off. We want them to download it, carry it with you, put it on your computer, discern in your relationships. And from that, you will find those mentors, and also begin asking yourself the right question. Where would I find my mentor? I'm not going to find one. Where would I find him or her? Where would I find them? How would I find them? What would I need to be doing in order to have them come into my life? And so ask the right questions. As I inadvertently tripped over myself doing.
Yeah.
And then do that. So, and we teach them the 7 steps of how to build your own giver's junto. From that junto, you will find those millionaires, and you will find those mentors. They will be a part of your life, and they'll automatically, because they're meeting that criteria, they could not be doing these 25 things that a giver does.
Yeah.
And not be exactly the kind of person you want to have in your life. It is it. Just that simple. So they go to, if I can share, just simply go to our website. It's Givers University, plural, giversuniversity.com. On each page, there's a place to sign up for our newsletter. It's absolutely free. They're going to get an email right away that says, "Do you want to get emails from these people?" We don't spam. I hate that. You sign up for
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and you're getting 6 emails a day from them automatically.
Yep.
Unsubscribe,
Yep.
unsubscribe. So they're going to get one email from us every week. It's on Thursday morning. It's called the Giver's Toolbox. It's usually a 4 or 5 minute read. There's usually maybe a 2 minute little video clip in there. And we call it the Giver's Toolbox because each week we give them another tool they can add into their discernment relationship toolbox. And it's every Thursday. And that's it. When they sign up for the newsletter, by the way, and they have to say, yes, I want to communicate with these people. Otherwise, they won't get anything else from us. But when they say that, 2 hours later, they will get the 25 do's checklist as a download, absolutely free. We want them to have it. So they're going to get that 2 hours later. And it's literally like, I think it's 4 or 5 pages. Literally going through, these are the deeds you look for and the people that you want to have closer to you. And these are the deeds you look for those you may want to respectfully distance. Be discerning in your relationship. And to cap off, if I may.
Yeah.
The comeback coach. One of the 3 things that my mentor shared with me that I'd like to share with your listeners in coming back, in business. He shared with me 3 phrases, and these phrases he talked me into saying, and I've been saying them for every day for well over 4 decades. And I can share with you, they have helped me so many times as my life changed and I got tackled and stood back up, because you're going to get tackled 1,000 times. Yeah. That's part of it. It's just going to happen. I don't care who you are, right? If a person says they haven't been tackled yet, I'm going to distance myself because I know they're next. And if everything's if everything's been perfect in their life, I'm going to really distance myself because they've been saving up. It's going to be a whopper.
Yeah.
So these are the 3 things in conclusion for your listeners. I pray they listen to this over and over again. I pray they listen to your podcast and share it with others because they're going to help them. These are the 3 phrases my mentor taught me that I've said to myself daily for over 4 decades. I will never give up. I will keep rising up. And I will always overcome.
That's so good. That's so good. That is such a critical message to overcoming. It's such a critical message to, I think, where we're at in our culture. And I just think at this time and place, I don't know how you feel about it. I know you've seen a lot over a number of years, but man, I can't think of a time in our history where we need to be more giving people than right now.
We need to stop buying into the fear mongering and renew hope. We need to renew hope in our lives, individually and with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was just did a talk the other day and I said, boy, it feels to me like there's a lot of hope and optimism missing right now. We need to get back to that. And I think one of the tools that we can do to get that, do that is just be a more giving people.
Starts automatically.
And we all have, special and unique gifts that can uplift somebody or help somebody. And I think we need to stop and pause and think about what those are when we're with people so that we can, be a more giving people, because that's how you receive.
Exactly right. That's how the scale works.
Yeah.
For your listeners, Mike Van Pelt is the kind of mentor you need. If you don't have a mentor, in my world, we call that naive. That's what we call it. You need a mentor. You need someone who can stand on the sidelines. The mentor doesn't stand next to the quarterback, because if he did, he'd see the same thing. There's a reason he's on the sidelines, so he can see the whole game and tell you. That's why you need a mentor. And Mike is an excellent example. And everyone, if you don't need a comeback now, you will be needing one. I'll guarantee you. And the world does love a comeback kid. So, Mike, thank you so much for having me on your great show.
Well, thanks for being on. Yeah, I think we could have been on all day. You've got a world of wealth of knowledge and nuggets, and I love the giver's mentality, and we're just so appreciative. Thank you for your kind words to me. It's very humbling, and I appreciate that. And thanks for being on the show. We really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you so much. And as we say at Givers University, don't have a good day. Have your best day ever.
There you go. Awesome. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks again, EA.
You bet. Have a great day.